At a time when most businesses seem to be taken hostage by their employees, this type of stern leadership is a welcome change.
Discipline me
Dave,
harder, please.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Well, let's go to something a bit lighter.
Okay.
Yeah, let's talk about Elon Musk.
Another new Texan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the photo of him with the big cowboy hat. I've seen that getting a lot of play lately.
The cyber rodeo, sorry not to cut you off, friend, but like the cyber rodeo was probably one of the most dystopian things I've ever seen. We did a whole segment on it.
What was that?
So it was because they built their big gigafactory here. And when it like officially opened up, they did a big celebration. So a bunch of people who've been living here for like 9 months drove down to Congress and went to Allen Boots and bought a new hat for themselves and showed up to hang out with like tech boys from San Francisco. And like they had a petting zoo. They had these very strange bulls, like mechanical bulls, but they weren't up on anything. They were just like sitting on the ground, sort of like menacingly.
Okay.
I don't know. It was just like, it was a very awkward try to like, dress up and play cowboy for a weekend, amongst people who have no real connection to that culture and certainly to the state.
That is funny.
Yeah.
Well, the first thing that kind of put him in the news was his return to work memo. And that was, my first reaction to that was, what a kind of like reactionary piece of shit, right? Because a lot of these people don't, if you don't have to work, if you've been able to do telework, then you should be able to continue to do telework, at least to a certain degree. But then I saw that it was executives, and I was like, okay, well, I don't really care that much. And then somebody mentioned that they think this is a precursor to layoffs, and I was like, what? Really? You think that? And then the layoffs came. He's laying off 10% of Tesla workers, 10,000 workers across the U.S. Like, that is huge. And it seems to, I mean, don't you think that it's all kind of stemming from his debacle with purchasing Twitter?
I was going to say, it's hard to know the causality. Like, is the causality because he knew his businesses were in trouble, or is his businesses in trouble because he did that dumb shit with Twitter? Like, I find it hard to know which way that goes. But I will just say, one of the executives he did mention by name in that letter was the HR folks at the Fremont factory in California. And the Fremont factory is the one with all those horrible like racist like allegations against it. Like, people should check out, like, I think the LA Times for the full language on the types of things that were going on, as well as like you're just making black people work the hardest jobs.
Right.
Yeah, and More Perfect Union, I know, did some coverage of that as well.
Yep.
And I was just going to mention, I can't help but imagine part of the reason Tesla's in Texas in the first place was for the very favorable business climate, they would say. And I think there's a lot of parallels between Texas and Alabama and really the rest of the South, in that these companies from California, New York, and from other countries, they come here because they know the state government's in their pocket. They know it's a hostile environment to unions. They know the wages are lower, the education levels are lower, and they see it as an opportunity to exploit us Southerners, really.
Last stop on the way to Mexico.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's true. And like, I mean, like macro level, the Twitter debacle plays into this, I think, because like people don't even remember about Tesla is that it is like a perfect example of like the kind of largesse that we have seen for like big corporations in the past few years in the era of cheap money from the Fed, right? That Tesla, they produce no cars, man. Like, they don't produce very many cars, and it's the most valued car company in the world, right? Which is ridiculous. And what that means then is, for the company, they have to watch their stock very closely. And as Tesla has started to bleed, because Musk has been showing himself to be extremely erratic, and I don't know if people have seen, his tweets in general over the past few weeks. I mean, if it was a friend, I would call them. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because you're very worried about the state of this person's mind and what that means for people who are investors. They sell their stock, and this is just another perfect reality of example of like the system that we're in, where Musk is being an irresponsible owner of a company, and then he's now to make up for that, the punishment is going to go on the backs of workers. And he did say that like it seems it's going to be mainly white collar people who are they're going to be targeting with this. But remember that, like, particularly since they've moved so much of their operations to Texas, 10% is a large part of their workforce. And think if you had like lived in New York or California your entire life, you have to move to Austin, Texas because of this guy, uproot your family, get a house here or something like that. And then in like 3 months, you get a pink slip because the boss has been tweeting too much. I mean, it's really it's really devastating. And it's another good example is why, Elon Musk always says, well, we love, billionaires are very important because we are very good at capital allocation, right? And you're seeing that he's actually really shit at it, and it has like very significant consequences for everybody else.
Yeah, well, and I mean, the layoffs are isolated to Tesla. I mean, in the car manufacturing space, in the U.S. car manufacturing space, he is alone in this. And to illustrate that, let's go ahead and play that clip of Biden responding to a question at a press conference, Adam.
Elon Musk has said that he has a super bad feeling about the U.S. economy. He's coming off his feeling about the economy. Jamie Dimon has said similar things.
Well, let me tell you, while Elon Musk is talking about that, Ford is increasing their investment overwhelmingly. I think Ford is increasing the investment in building new electric vehicles, 6,000 new employees, union employees, I might add, in the Midwest. The former Chrysler Corporation, Stellantis, they are also making similar investments in electric vehicles. Intel is adding 20,000 new jobs for making computer chips. Lots of luck on this trip to the moon. I mean,
So, I mean, that's pretty good rhetoric, I think, and pretty good dismissal of him. But it goes to show that and in addition to what he cited, Ford is building the biggest car manufacturing plant, if not in the world, in America right now, just west of Memphis, that is being built by union tradespeople. I know the iron workers sponsor the program, are sending some people out there. They're recruiting some people for that. The IBEW is as well, sponsor the program. I mean, this is going to be a huge, there's lots of investment, and I think it's still kind of up in the air whether or not these workers will be UAW represented west of Memphis. But there's lots of investment going on in manufacturing in the United States right now. And I think it shows a weakness on the part of Tesla that at this time, while so much investment is going into manufacturing, they're cutting back.
And this is like, there's another point that Elon Musk made, I think either right before or in the wake of these layoffs, where he was talking about everybody at Tesla is the same. And he was saying there are no special cafeterias for workers. We all use the same bathrooms. There's no high ceiling, is not high ceiling, office on the 10th floor, right, where only the executives are allowed. And I can't remember who made this point. It might have been Max Berger, but somebody just retweeted the difference in pay from the average worker at Tesla to the CEO and said, I don't know if it's very much true that all these things are exactly equal or exactly the same.
Right. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, what I find fascinating is the way the right is adopting Elon and acting as if he's like some sort of big liberal and not some sort of titan of industry. But I'm just reading the Dave Rubin show, which maybe I'll just listen to this afternoon. But Elon Musk's harsh message for his Tesla employees. This was came out yesterday. Dave Rubin of the Rubin Report. I know that's the podcast. I don't know why they start there. It talks about Elon Musk's harsh words for the employees of Tesla. An email from Musk to his Tesla employees said that remote work will no longer be allowed, and anyone who wants to continue working from home will be fired. At a time when most businesses seem to be taken hostage by their employees, this type of stern leadership is a welcome change. And I just appreciate some of the starkness about, like,
Discipline me
Dave,
harder,
like,
please.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
Jeez. Wow.
Something, David, I think maybe you brought this up about the Tesla stock and how unmoored from reality that has been. We've seen so much of our economy over the decades has just been absorbed by finance. So much is just speculation. And I think Tesla is a great example of that. There's been plenty of these Silicon Valley companies where, their stock is going through the roof, but they're not actually making anything. In some cases, they're not even making profits. It's just, it's a bubbles upon bubbles, and that's one of the things that just blows my mind sometimes, is trying to think about the American economy and just how much of it's fake. It's just casinos.
Before David jumps in, I just want to say, like, that's what my sense is too, and like Dave follows close to me. But it seems like so much of that is betting on future monopolies, right? Like Uber and whatever. It's like it's that the investor class is like, let's get the next thing that's a monopoly where we can just control the world, or at least a bigger part of the world as that industry can command.
And the problem with Tesla is that it doesn't look like it's going to be a monopoly on on electric cars, because we're seeing pretty successful ones coming out from the other manufacturers. I mean, like, not to get too theoretical about this, but this is a point that, like, Frederick Engels made a long time ago, which is that capitalists, despite the fact that they are involved and invested in this system, they hate production. And they would prefer to get as far away from production as possible and pursue fictitious capital. And it's this kind of mania of the boom and bust cycle that we live in, where, this is like, people like Marxists have been making this argument for a long time that, like, the fundamentals of the capitalist economy trend toward crisis. And the trend towards crisis is the kind of sprinting away from, like, the actual material reality of production, the actual labor that is going into the products and the goods and services that we're using. And Tesla is just like a perfect example of that kind of irrational system, a company that's been able to amass incredible amounts of not just wealth, but political power and power at large, despite the fact that it's very untethered from the actual reality. And it doesn't take very much of, a reality shock to really make that whole system start to crumble really quickly. And it just shows that the system is inherently irrational as long as we, allow these people to basically make decisions. It's the same thing with Tesla as it is with the oil companies, as I was talking about earlier, right? It's like, the production is secondary to the profit. And, you can find ways to sort of patch that up for a short period of time, especially at moments where there's a lot of money sort of, flowing around. But the second that, the belts have to get a little bit tighter, crisis abounds.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.